Tonight, risking their life for a meal. For the third day in a row, dozens of Palestinians are shot dead as they try to get food. Israeli military says soldiers fired on suspects who approached them in a threatening way, but can provide no evidence they were armed. Tonight, we'll see the scramble for aid and the scramble for medical treatment, with more than 50 people killed in 72 hours.
We are doing everything we can in order to allow for this food to be distributed in an organised fashion and to make sure that the aid does not reach the hands of Hamas.
The IDF insists it's Hamas who are blocking civilians from the help they need. Hamas says Israel is transforming aid hubs into death traps and bloodbaths. So what do we know for sure? Is aid really being weaponized by both sides? We'll try to get some answers. Also coming up, 18 years after Madeleine McCann disappeared, another search now underway near the Portuguese resort where she was last seen. Humiliation again for Russia as Ukraine targets a key bridge in Crimea using underwater explosives. Plus, warfare or welfare, the choice reportedly being forced on the Prime Minister as NATO demands a bigger commitment to defence spending. And how illegal logging is threatening this chimpanzee sanctuary in Sierra Leone. That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. For hundreds, thousands of Gazans, the day begins early with a long walk at dawn. They walk because they and their families are hungry, because Israel has shut down United Nations distribution sites and is now only delivering aid through 4 depots manned by independent American contractors and guarded by armed soldiers. The information provided is confusing. The humanitarian relief provided is insufficient. And now these chaotic scenes have turned fatal.
As crowds were moving along the designated routes towards a humanitarian aid distribution point in northern Gaza, our soldiers identified several individuals who moved away from the crowd.
Well, that's the explanation from the Israeli government about what happened this morning. The Gaza Health Ministry says 27 people were killed and many more injured.
You saw the horrors of when thousands, maybe tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip trying to go to these places, being sniped at, assassinated, terrified.
The condemnation has been forceful, that from the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations today. But Israel insists its aid plan is working. That's why early tomorrow morning, more Palestinians with no other option will begin that long, potentially fatal journey for food. Tonight, we'll assess Israel's evidence that Hamas is to blame. Let's get started, though, with this report from our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle.
This is the daily humiliating dawn trek, just to eat. People scavenge for anything they can find amongst the boxes of aid in one of the distribution hubs. And it has become a lethal gauntlet. The efforts to get aid into Gaza have turned into chaos. The Israeli-backed aid stations, run by private contractors, have become an uncontrolled frenzy. And for the third day in a row, dozens of Palestinians were shot dead as they went to get food.
We were out bringing bread about 1.5 kilometers away from the Israeli tanks. We were surprised that shots and shelling were being fired at us. Everyone fell on the ground and people were stepping on dead bodies. It's not normal. The enemy is not normal.
I was on the way at 3:30 in the morning. There was a shooting and I laid down. I don't know how the bullet hit my head. This is what happened to me. I don't know.
The IDF has admitted opening fire after some suspects had moved towards them. They say they had deviated from a designated route.
The Israeli army, they issued warning shots in the air, and still some of these suspects continued to advance towards the troops in a threatening manner.
Many of the patients were taken to Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. This man had been shot in the neck. There was no space for him in the emergency department. All the beds were already full. Everywhere, there were walking wounded, with blood on their clothes from bullet holes. Israel says that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is working. International aid organisations all say it isn't.
Many children are sharing with us now that they wish to be dead, that they don't want to be here anymore. They want to be with their mothers or fathers who've died. They want to go to paradise or heaven where there is food and water. And this is absolutely desperate for this generation of children who see no hope, they see no future.
The United Nations has said the attacks on civilians going to get aid could be a war crime. The Israeli government says the aid hubs are working well, and the IDF has said it's expanding the military operation to control the whole of Gaza.
We are doing everything we can in order to allow for this food to be distributed in an organised fashion and to make sure that the aid does not reach the hands of Hamas.
The 2 aid hubs that are open are in the very south of Gaza. The walk to get there is many kilometres in the hours before sunrise. And it is first come, first served. The survival of the fittest in a place where almost everybody is already starving. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News in Jerusalem.
Well, as you've been hearing, Israel insists its aid hubs fulfills its humanitarian commitments and prevents Hamas from stealing aid. But the United Nations and international charities are distancing themselves from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which was set up to oversee distribution. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, has been assessing the new system.
Under the rules of war, as military occupiers, Israelis must guarantee the provision of food and aid to the people of Gaza. For most of this war, it's allowed the UN to do that on and off, but it's accused the UN of being significantly compromised by Hamas without providing much evidence. It is now outsourcing the job to a private American company, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It's been mired in controversy since its launch, its head resigning, saying it would not be able to do its job humanely or independently. Now, this map shows where the new company's aid distribution centres are, these orange squares, and in red where most Gazans are now living, most of them in tented camps. There are only 4 aid points compared to hundreds when the UN was in charge, and as you can see, they are not near where people live. Getting aid now requires walking a minimum of 1.5 miles through a war zone. The new system began chaotically a week ago. Crowds overran the aid points, people desperate to reach the food. And by Sunday, things appeared to turn violent, with dozens of casualties reported. The new American aid operators said there were no incidents inside their sites. The Israeli military said it only fired warning shots around 1 kilometre away, but 31 people were reported killed. Today at 4 a.m, the US aid organisation put this notice up on Facebook, giving just an hour's notice for when aid would start being distributed, and with confusing instructions on how to get to the site. One part of the document told people not to go beyond this red stop sign, another not to move further than the roundabout at this junction close to where the shooting ended up happening, 0.5 kilometre from the aid point. The Israelis said the Palestinians they shot at posed a threat, but have provided no evidence that they were armed. They have released this footage they claim shows Hamas firing into a crowd of Palestinians on Sunday, but we verified that it didn't happen anywhere near any of the new aid points. Aid professionals say the new system simply can't meet the massive humanitarian needs of Gaza.
This is not an appropriate, fit way to distribute aid equitably in a dignified way to people who are facing the most desperate humanitarian conditions. This is an organization with no track record of working in situations like this. And the other bit as well is, again, everything is being reduced. The number of trucks that's coming in, number of boxes of food that are being distributed. People can't live on boxes of food and bags of flour alone. They need all the services that go along this.
The Israelis are accused of using aid as a weapon of war during an 11-week blockade that brought Gaza to the brink of famine. Critics say the new system is more about forcing Palestinians into a corner of southern Gaza than distributing aid. And they say if the UN is not allowed back in to resume aid operations, there will be more mass casualty incidents like this.
That was our Dominic Waghorn there. Well, we were hoping to speak to the Israel Defense Forces live on the programme tonight, but they told us nobody was available for an interview. An IDF spokesperson, Brigadier General Effie Defrin, did give this video statement, but we weren't able to put questions to him. Just have a listen.
Our operations in the Jabalia region last night, the combatants who were traveling in a Hammer went on an IED. The terrorists came out from a tunnel shaft and put these charges. The shaft of the tunnel, which you can see now, was the exit point for the terrorists, and they put the explosive charges through there. This is an active tunnel that is used for terrorist acts, and the shaft is inside a demolished building near a route. And it is important to emphasize this building is a military target, like tens of thousands of other facilities all over Gaza that are used for terrorism. Almost every second house is booby-trapped and has a shaft to a tunnel. We are demolishing these buildings, not for purpose of destroying it, because each such a building is an operational site that can harm our soldiers. During the holiday, the IDF forces expanded the maneuver in Gaza. We are taking over territories and cleansing them of terrorists. We are in the midst of an extensive operation, both above the ground and beneath the ground. Food packages are distributed by an American company directly to the people of Gaza. In addition, 1,400 trucks have been waiting on the Gazan side of the transfer point Kerem Shalom. The IDF and Israel are doing whatever necessary. From there on, it is the responsibility of the UN to distribute. We are doing everything we can in order to allow for the food to be distributed in an organized fashion and to make sure that the aid does not reach the hands of Hamas. It has proven itself, this plan. The people of Gaza reach these compounds and they understand that it's not Hamas that are taking care of them. On the contrary, Hamas are trying to prevent the aid from reaching them. And they understand this threat, so they are acting violently and they're trying to disrupt the arrival of this aid to the residents. And you could see Hamas armed activists shooting at civilians who were going to collect this aid. In southern Khan Yunis, they opened fire, the terrorists, from short range and threw stones on Gazan civilians who tried to collect the aid. Hamas is losing its control over the population. It is continuing to act against its own people with terrorism, killing, and violence. And it is disseminating fake news, and it is echoed by some of the media outlets in the West without verification. It was said that the IDF shot at civilians in an aid distribution, food distribution center, and that is completely unfounded and false. It is propaganda of Hamas. The Chief of General Staff briefed what had happened there in order to reach the truth. Earlier today, IDF forces about half a kilometer from the compound shot at people who came close to the compound, and that risked the lives of the soldiers. We are debriefing this event and we will find out the truth. We are not preventing Gazans from reaching these aid hubs. On the contrary, we are allowing it. It is Hamas which is preventing it.
That was the IDF spokesperson giving a press briefing, although, as I said, we couldn't put any questions to them. Well, listening to that was Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories. Francesca, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. We were just listening there to the IDF spokesperson, and you know, for the last 20 months, the IDF has pointed the finger of blame on Hamas. Hamas has pointed the finger of blame on the IDF. But just in terms of this latest incident that we're hearing, the IDF says that it is Hamas that is weaponizing the aid, trying to take the aid, and Hamas is saying that it's the IDF that's doing that. Just your take.
Well, I think that it's pretty evident what's happening, and it didn't start yesterday. It didn't start 2 months ago. This situation has been ongoing for 20 months now. And in the last 3 months, we have seen something which is of a brutality that, in my experience, has no precedent. And it's not about blaming, it's about legal obligations. Israel, as the occupying power, is obliged under international law to allow all the aid necessary. And the United Nations have, for I think the first time in the history I can remember of, completely disengaged from providing humanitarian aid, because they understand that this is beyond what neutrality can guarantee. Israel and the US have set up a mechanism which is cruel and brutal, and not just against international law, to starve and then punish the Palestinians under the camouflage of providing aid. This is the reality, I'm afraid.
Francesca, I'm just going to read to you what the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said. He said he's called for an independent investigation into the killing of Palestinians near an aid distribution centre in Gaza on Sunday. Volker Turk, the UN's human rights chief, says attacks against civilians constitute a war crime and calls for an independent investigation. Just a few days ago on this programme, I spoke to Martin Griffiths, the former UN humanitarian chief, and he's described the situation in Gaza as genocide. Despite leading humanitarians saying such things, they seem at this point to just be words and not changing anything on the ground.
So first of all, let me add my take on that, because genocide is a very serious allegation that a number of UN experts, including myself, have made long time ago, or more than 1 year ago. And this is because it was already possible to connect all the dots between all the crimes that Israel has been committing in Gaza since the beginning of its assault in October 2023. Of course, this is a war crime, but if you put all the war crimes, all the massacres, all the crimes against humanity that Israel has been committing, you understand that what is unmissable is the intent to destroy the Palestinians by creating conditions calculated for annihilation and humiliating, inflicting enormous suffering on the Palestinians. So what is missing is an alignment of politics and the law. And this is where the system that we have set up in the last 80 years are collapsing on our head.
So are you saying? Are you saying? I mean, in the last few weeks, we've heard from France, the UK, Canada. They've condemned Israel's actions. They've called on Israel to stop. They've said what is happening on the ground. The killing of Palestinians is unacceptable. Are you saying, though, that this is not aligned with what, say, the UN is saying and calling for at this stage?
Look, we are 20 months into this, so it's great that the UK, France, and other leaders wake up to the reality. Question is, where have they been until last week? Because this is what many, including in the United Nations, have been denouncing for 20 months. And even if they denounce and they see the situation more clearly, they're still trading with Israel. Many of them are still supplying weapons to Israel, and this is unacceptable. It's about time to align actions with words, especially with principles.
Well, then I wonder what you believe needs to now happen for this conflict to come to an end. I mean, we've seen multiple rounds of attempts to get ceasefire talks underway. They failed. We saw the ceasefire break down in January. How do they reach a point in which, and what kind of pressure should the international community be putting on Israel to bring this conflict to an end?
Well, I think, first of all, this requires honesty and an admission of responsibility. Israel would have not gone that far without the active support, encouragement of a number of states. And while many others were turning their eyes away, I'm about to publish a report which also documents another striking, though until now largely missed element of this: how many big actors have been profiting from this genocide, which again explains the world we live in. Profits have come before the life of people, and so many have profited from the carnage that Israel has made in Gaza, which of course it's troublesome for the Israelis themselves, because it's not that again they will get out in a healthy state of mind out of this situation.
Francesca Albanese, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme.
Thank you.
Well, let's speak now to our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who joins us from Washington. Mark, we've seen the situation and how it's unfolding, certainly around the aid distribution centres over the course of the depots over the course of the last few days. How is the administration, how is the White House responding to this?
Well, both the White House and the State Department, where I've just been in the last hour or so, are expressing a degree of frustration towards the media and other aid organisations who they say are complaining about the way aid is being distributed. And the view of the State Department spokesman is, look, for the past few months, you've all been complaining that there's been no aid getting into Gaza. Now you're complaining that the aid is being distributed in the wrong way. And that appears to be her defence. We'll play you in a minute what the White House spokesperson, what the press secretary Caroline Leavitt has been saying. But first of all, I think it's worth reflecting on what this organisation is and what it is not. It is not operated by any major humanitarian organisations, all of whom, as Ali was saying in his report, have condemned the way it is operating. It's registered, incidentally, in Delaware in the United States, which I think gives you a clue of where it is backed from. Its press releases, which come out pretty regularly and dismiss everything that we are reporting and that others are reporting as fake news or inaccurate news. They read in a very similar way to Israeli press releases. We know that this is an organisation that is backed both by Israel and by the United States. It's the boss of the organisation, the interim boss, is a guy called John Acri. He is American. He's based here in Virginia. I've tried to get hold of him. I managed to get hold of him very briefly the other day on LinkedIn. And he said, thanks for your message. Our media team is taking shape, but we're not doing any interviews at this time. Please be patient with us, and thanks for your attention to this important work. Now, I have today sent him the piece that's on our website and on our app, which Dominic outlined earlier on in your programme. We've had no response to that. There is another character who has today been appointed as the executive chairman of the organisation. He is the Reverend Dr. Johnny Moore. Now, he is an evangelical Christian. He is close to Donald Trump. He is, so says the press release here, an internationally respected advocate for peace, religious freedom, and human dignity, twice appointed by President Trump to serve as commissioner on the US Commission for International Religious Freedom. But he has, Yalda, a particular view on the Israel-Gaza conflict. So I guess what aid agencies are saying is, look, you are not wholly expert in what you are doing, and the pictures play that out. John Acri, it should be said, is an expert in this. He's been in this field for about 20 years. But beyond that, not so much. And the aid agencies are also saying you have a vested interest in the way this is playing out. We, as aid agencies, do not have a vested political interest, although Israel would push back hard on that. As they have said so many times, they simply do not trust the United Nations aid organizations at all, which is why they have pushed them to one side. Now, back, Yalda, to what the White House has been saying. Have a listen to Caroline Leavitt, who was speaking a little earlier.
The administration is aware of those reports, and we are currently looking into the veracity of them because, unfortunately, unlike some in the media, we don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak, unlike the BBC, who had multiple headlines. They wrote, Israeli tank kills 26, Israeli tank kills 21, Israeli gunfire kills 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident, and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything. Oh, okay. So we're going to look into reports before we confirm them from this podium or before we take action.
So, Mark, that was Caroline Levitt there. And just in the last day, you've been speaking to the former spokesperson of the State Department, Matthew Miller. Let's just have a little listen to what he said about how Israel is prosecuting this conflict.
What is hard is almost certainly not an open question is that there have been individual incidents that have been war crimes where Israeli soldiers, members of the Israeli military, have committed war crimes.
So that was Matt Miller saying that there were instances and certainly examples of Israel committing war crimes, and he clarified that he wasn't speaking on behalf of the administration. This was how he viewed it, but quite an extraordinary admission there. Just 6 months since he held that post and that role, and there was so much criticism around how the Biden administration was handling, the way in which Israel was conducting itself.
Yes, a startling revelation, and he was frank. He said, as a member of the administration, the line I was taking was their view, and their view, the Biden administration, incidentally backed up now by the Trump administration, is that war crimes had not taken place, certainly on a state level had not taken place, and that. But privately, he said, incidentally, they continue to believe that. Privately, he is now admitting that he had grave reservations about that view and is now openly saying he is in no doubt that war crimes have taken place. What was also interesting in our conversation was that he pointed out, and this was something that frustrated me so many times when we questioned him, me and many others. We would constantly ask him about incidents that had taken place where Israel was accused of having done something. He would always say, and Tammy Bruce, his successor in the Trump administration, said it again today, we're concerned about this, we're asking Israel to conduct an investigation. And the investigations never came. We never got a result from those investigations. Now, out of office, he is admitting that, it is indeed the case that you very rarely get any definitive result from any investigations that the Israelis say they're carrying out. Now, Hamas, incidentally, unsolicited by us, have clearly, they saw this interview. They have released a statement. I'll read it to you. They say Hamas views the statements made by former US State Department spokesman Matthew Miller, in which he confirmed that Israel, without doubt, committed war crimes in Gaza, as a significant admission that condemns the occupation and exposes its crimes. It goes on to say Miller clearly revealed what he was not allowed to speak, that he was not allowed to speak the truth while in office and was forced to adhere to the US government's official narrative regarding the occupation's practices. And it continues, this exposes the deeply political complicity of US administrations with the occupation and their criminal cover-up of its brutal violations. So, a very interesting revelation from Matt Miller. We did actually try to ask Tammy Bruce whether she has private views that differ from what she's publicly saying. She wouldn't be drawn on that. Israel has responded to the interview as well with a line that we've heard many times, that they act under international law in order to get their hostages home and in order to remove Hamas. Yalda, one thing I must just pick up on, because I think it's really important, the clip you played with the White House spokesperson just now, where she criticised the BBC. What it is worth saying is that the BBC, like us, they have local employees in Gaza who are doing everything that they can to find out the truth of what is going on in Gaza. What is also true is that we are not there. The international media is still banned from going to Gaza. And so it is quite rich for the White House, this one and indeed the last one, who have done nothing to pressure Israel to allow international journalists into Gaza. It's pretty rich of them to then dismiss everything that the international media publishes as fake news.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, for the last 20 months or so, journalists, international journalists, have not been able to enter Gaza, and we've been really relying on our local colleagues to get the information to us. Mark, thank you so much. And Mark, you were saying there about Trump 100 and that interview. And a reminder, Trump 100 Extended is available wherever you get your podcasts, with a new episode every weekday. Now, I've got some breaking news to bring you now, just on the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has confirmed its distribution centres will be closed tomorrow. They put a post on their Facebook page, and it says, and I'm just going to read you that post on Facebook: tomorrow, June 4, the distribution centres will be closed for renovations, organisation and efficiency improvements due to the ongoing upgrades. Entry into the distribution centre areas is strictly prohibited. Please avoid the site and adhere to the general instructions. Operations will resume on Thursday. Please continue to monitor for updates and adhere to the guidelines. So just some breaking news there. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, this newly created foundation that is now distributing aid at different depots in the south of Gaza, where we've seen violent outbreaks and a mad scramble after it was believed that there was some, a number of people were shot at by the IDF. The IDF denies this and blames Hamas, but this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation set up there to provide aid to the people of Gaza, and of course they're risking their lives to get there every day, has confirmed now that the distribution centres will be closed tomorrow. Now you're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim, still to come on the programme. A new search for Madeleine McCann gets underway in Portugal 18 years after she went missing. And Sky News understands NATO will force the UK to push up its defence spending in an effort to rearm and keep the US on side.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
alive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Let's go to Portugal now, where a new search is underway for Madeleine McCann, 18 years after she went missing. German police have been scouring land close to the home of the prime suspect in the British girl's disappearance, Christian B. Well, the McCann family was staying in a resort on the Algarve in the town of Praia de Luz in 2007. She went missing from her room in this hotel when she was just 3 years old. Police are searching more than 20 plots of land in the surrounding areas. The chief suspect, Christian B, in her disappearance, is linked to a farmhouse in the vicinity. Sky's Dan Whitehead sent us this report.
A new search and fresh hope for answers. Specialist police teams drove in from Germany. They're leading this operation just a mile from where 3-year-old Madeleine went missing 18 years ago. Tony lives in the middle of the search site and was here back in 2007 when she disappeared.
They searched up here 20 years ago when searched all around here 20 years ago. And I'm not sure what they're hoping to find, because even locals were searching up on, there's a pathway along the cliffs up here, and searching along the cliffs for, I don't know, days, weeks, etc., and didn't find anything.
Police were last in Portugal 2 years ago when they searched a dam 45 minutes away, but nothing was found. This time, it is a vast area.
Just to give you a sense of the terrain that police are having to look through, it is dense shrubland, it's very windy, it's exposed, there are old ruined barns and buildings, there are wells that they're looking in. In fact, we understand that the German and Portuguese authorities have identified more than 20 sites that they're going to be searching throughout the week.
Madeleine McCann disappeared from the family's holiday apartment in Praia de Luz in May 2007. It sparked a huge Europe-wide police operation. The prime suspect in the case is this German man, Christian B, currently serving a 7-year sentence for rape. He's always denied any involvement in Madeleine's disappearance.
He's an excellent suspect. He fits the profile. He was in the area at the time. He is known to have committed burglaries, in those types of areas in holiday accommodation. He has a background and convictions for child abuse-related offences.
The Met Police says it's aware of the new search here and is continuing its own investigation. German officials won't say whether any new information has led to the latest search. But the fact is that Madeleine's disappearance is one of the world's most high-profile missing person cases. Last month, ahead of her 22nd birthday, her parents described Madeleine as beautiful and unique, saying they'll continue to leave no stone unturned. Dan Whitehead, Sky News, in Lagos, Portugal.
Now, last night we focused on percentages and the UK's ability to fund changes needed to its war machine. Well, I have another number for you, 3.5%. Sky News understands the UK will be forced to agree to increase defence spending to that percentage of national income within a decade. It's part of a NATO push to rearm and keep one man on side, Donald Trump. Here's our political correspondent, Tamara Cohen.
Celebrating liftoff for the defence review, including a new generation of combat aircraft. But there are already warnings the pace of spending will have to increase, with the UK under pressure to agree a rise to 3.5% at a NATO summit this month. The Defence Secretary said Britain was already playing its part.
As the Prime Minister has said, Britain already makes a huge contribution to NATO. We've published a defence review that has NATO at its heart. This is the biggest increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. The important thing is how we spend it. And here today we've seen how we can use the innovation to give us the battlefield edge.
Sky News understands that in the building behind me, 3% spending, which is still years away, is seen as a bare minimum. One senior defence source said the UK would have to go higher, or we can no longer call ourselves a leader within NATO. The chair of the Defence Committee said the Trump administration was driving allies to do more and urgently. NATO are already pushing for 3.5% at least. Do you think the Prime Minister will have to commit to it?
The inexorable push towards it is inevitable, I fear, in that if that is what the US has decided, we do need to realise the gravity of the moment, realise that Russia has transitioned into a war-fighting economy, realise that China and others are also spending huge amounts on defence. We certainly cannot be complacent.
How much will taxes have to go up to pay for defence?
But this is a key question, as the government already faces a backlash over welfare cuts and has promised to increase spending on public services. Inevitably, this means spending cuts or tax rises. How much would the government need to raise?
Getting to 3.5% of national income, obviously relative to today, is even more expensive. It's something like an extra £30 billion a year. We could get away with not having tax increases if the economy starts growing much, much faster than it has over the last 15 years. But if it doesn't, and if the government can't think of other bits of what it's doing that it can stop or really significantly cut, then inevitably we'll have tax rises.
The projects to rearm Britain will take years to complete, but the wrangling over the price tag starts now. Tamara Cohen, Sky News.
I'm joined now by former US Ambassador to NATO, Kay Bailey Hutchison. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador, here on the programme. We heard there in the piece that we just played from the Defence Secretary saying Britain is playing its part and the focus should really be on how that money is now spent. And although Britain says that it will up its defence spending and that is the goal, clearly NATO is saying, look, this is not enough and we need you to boost it.
Absolutely. I think every country in NATO is going to agree to have a goal of 3.5% of gross domestic product on defense over the next 10 years. Now realize that over 10 years, that will be spread out. It takes time to build big defense appropriations. And it's important, though, that the British public understands that UK has been one of the leaders of NATO since we agreed to 2%. UK has been there, and many of our allies have not even gone to 2%. And now everyone is agreeing that we need to go to 3.5. You know, we do have a lot of evil out in the world. Russia's at your doorstep. China is on all of our doorsteps, and we've got to have strength to deter this kind of intervention.
I mean, as far as Donald Trump's concerned, 3.5% isn't sufficient. He's looking at 5%.
This is true. America will begin to build toward 5%. We're probably in the 4% now, because we have always put security first and believe that if security is there, that economy will follow. And yes, we will try to go more, but I think taking the 3.5 step first and trying to achieve really resilient weapons and military personnel and interoperable functions and training is going to be a major step that will be agreed to at the summit this month.
I guess the key question is what the Defence Secretary said, and it's about how this money is spent and spending it in a smart way so that the right technology is invested in, not just legacy hardware. And of course, the bombers and the warships, the aircraft, all of those things are important. But what we've seen from the events in Ukraine, for example, or in Russia over the course of the last few days, the audacious attack on Russia and its bombers, taking out almost a third of its bombers using drones, just shows, the preview into the future of warfare.
You're absolutely right. That is the future of warfare. And it's the technology that is going to be the deterrence. And we must control the technology and the intelligence and the space that this is all going where it's going to happen. So we have to be in front of our adversaries so that they know they cannot attack us or think that we are weak. And I think building this resilience is very important. And you're totally right. It is going to be technology, AI, the use of AI, the use of intelligence. And as you know, the US and the UK have a very special intelligence sharing so that we know ahead of hopefully our adversaries what is out there and prepare so that we will not have a war. NATO is deterrence so that we don't have war.
And just briefly, Ambassador, are you concerned at where the West is today versus its adversaries? I know that there are all these calls for upping defence spending, buying new technology, but given where the West is today?
I think we are not where we need to be. I think that the aggression that we have, and frankly, the atrocities that Russia has committed in their attacks on the sovereign nation of Ukraine have shown us that there will be no stops, that the only thing Putin will understand is strength. And I think what Ukraine did just in the last few days, putting drones out into Russia, many of the pieces of equipment that they are trying to destroy are the ones that Russia is using to destroy their country, meaning Ukraine. So I think that we're not where we need to be. We see that China is doing a lot of adversarial measures, and they're helping Russia in this attack on Ukraine. And we need to be clear-eyed about this, and we need all of the alliance to agree that we have peace through strength.
Ambassador, grateful for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yalda.
And if you scan the QR code on the right-hand side of your screen, you can listen to a new Sky News Defence podcast series where we bring together a top team of former government ministers and military and security chiefs for a war game that simulates a Russian attack on the UK. How will the UK fare? Well, you can find out from next Tuesday. Now, I just want to bring you some more images from inside Russian territory now. First, we had that drone attack, which the ambassador spoke about on Russian bombers, masterminded by Ukraine security services. Now have a look at this. Ukraine claims it struck a bridge linking Russia with Crimea with underwater explosives. The Kerch Bridge serves as a key route for Russian supplies to be transported in the war. The Ukrainian security service says the operation took months to plan and that 2,400 pounds of explosives were detonated on the seabed overnight. The bridge was closed for several hours, but has reopened. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, we report from Sierra Leone, where illegal construction is putting a famous chimpanzee sanctuary at risk.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna.
We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing. We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Durman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water, and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime. They don't care for that. Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu nationalist party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Let's go to Sierra Leone now, where illegal construction is putting one of Africa's best-known animal sanctuaries at risk. Our Africa correspondent Yusra El-Bagir reports.
This lush rainforest isn't just scenery. It's a sacred home to our closest primate, the critically endangered Western chimpanzee. Illegal encroachment is eating away at the borders of the safe haven on the edges of Sierra Leone's capital.
That encroachment is fast approaching, and chimps always had this as a buffer.
Their territory is diminishing, making them see us as intruders.
Yeah, so we need to start going this way.
Oh, right.
Yeah, come this way. Yeah. Let's get going, yeah. You can see how they are reacting. Imagine on that side when we don't even know who is coming there now. That's where the danger will come.
Takugama Chimpanzee Sanctuary is Sierra Leone's most popular tourist attraction. Now closed to visitors, as illegal construction undermines 3 decades of conservation efforts. But they continue to care for over 120 rescued chimps of all ages.
every time a baby chimp arrives, people think, oh, well, you're doing a good job. You were able to confiscate a chimp and rescue a chimp and bring it here. But for me, as founder of the sanctuary, I feel defeated because this chimp shouldn't be arriving here. If we have done enough work outside, there shouldn't be any killing. There shouldn't be rescues. That's the time I can say we have achieved something.
Just behind Esther is Takugama's latest rescue, Asana. He's vulnerable and frail, slowly being nursed back to health by his chimp mum, Mama P. An informant sent this footage to Takugama of baby Asana being tormented as an illegal pet. They tracked him down and brought him to the safety of the sanctuary, where he can grow to become strong, like his new older siblings.
It's great to see that he's so playful, because by the time they get here, they've been rescued from really traumatic experiences at the hands of people in the country. So to see them in this state where they're healthy and playing around is extraordinary.
Even without visitors, the sanctuary is rich and alive. But the severity of this moment for the chimps and the country cannot go ignored.
Now we're closed indefinitely. But what if this becomes something wherein we can never open the sanctuary again to people to visit? Then you have all these young Sierra Leoneans who have to live their lives not even ever understanding fully what the national animal is, not having the opportunity to experience it.
In the absence of funding from, at the moment, from the US government, it's going to be difficult for us to turn around quickly. But we are very resilient. We are like chimpanzees, so we will manage somehow.
The resilience of these sensitive, bright creatures is being tested, as the space carved out for them by their human friends is increasingly coming under threat. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News, Freetown.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. The news at 10 is up next with Gillian. Good night.